Welcome again. This is Brother G coming to you again with another video message, another video teaching. Thanks for stopping by. Now, I am sure you have heard this term, a man after God's own heart. And I'm sure if you're a preacher or a teacher, you have heard preachers and teachers always refer to David in this context, a man after God's own heart. And I'm going to show you that the meaning that they derive or they assume from this particular statement or this particular pretext is not the right one. And many have gone with this sort of understanding from the text and have created their own idols. There are many idols. There are many idols. And even the book, this book that was given to us, even me, when you read it with the understanding, you realize that man, in his own estimation and assumption, love and adore idols. And they are the ones who created idols. They are the one who created David as their idol. They are the one who created even Jesus as their idol. Even the book that was given to us and to me by extension, realize that in the truth of truth, no man can be worshipped. Only God can be worshipped. The last statement is blasphemous to idol worshippers. The last statement when we say even Jesus cannot be worshipped. Because you see, I made a video that there are robbers and thieves of religious beliefs. And robbers and thieves of religious belief go into every area of the corner of the earth. And they seek out what the people belief, and what they do is they steal their belief and incorporate it into Babylon. Rather, it is better looked at this way. The thieves and robbers of religious cultures, they seek out what people believe and submit their lives to, or they yield to, they submit to whatever it is, any culture you go into. And this has been long been done. They seek out what the people submit, they yield to. In other words, they worship. And they use their ignorance against them. And we're going to show you that literally when people read the text, they don't read the text because they don't read the text and understand the text as it is. They understand the text as they assume it is. So when we read the context, a man after God's own heart, the prevailing meaning is that David had a heart like God, which I'm going to show you it is not true. It's a different meaning they derive, that David had God's own heart. And they're gonna try to extrapolate from some of the things that they read from the Old Testament and say that David had God's own heart. But that was not the context of how God's own heart. And it is so surprising as a Johnny come lately in the reference to reading the book and to realize that how does they teach me context, but yet still preachers and teachers don't use context, which is weird. So we're going to look at it and we're going to show you the context of a man after God's own heart, and you're going to realize a different meaning from the text itself. Stay tuned. But now, thy kingdom shall not continue. This is Saul Samuel is speaking to. The Lord, or the Spirit of the Lord, the Spirit of the living God, the Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call God, had sought him a man after his own heart. And the Lord had commanded him to be captain over his people, because thou hast not kept the word or the commandment of the Lord. So here, according to the writing, this is Samuel advising Saul and saying, because as you read the story, because Saul had not followed the I think 3 or 2 distinct command that Samuel gave him according to the institution that they build up over years, or years at up to this point, where kings not supposed to go into the priest's office. That's not a here or there. And so this is Samuel telling Saul that the kingdom will be taken from him, and God is looking for a man after his own heart. In the context of this verse, you realize that simply even going to no other verse, this is just basically telling you, this is the meaning of a man after his own heart. This is how it should be understood. That and God is choosing a man that would follow the leading of the Spirit. Not that he's going to have a heart exactly like God, because we saw what David did. He didn't have a heart exactly like God. The truth is, you could say it this way: God is going to seek a man that seek his heart, seek God's heart. He don't have it. He's seeking it out. He's looking for it through his life, through his experience, through the power that he was given. He's seeking it out. He didn't find it up to this point. And even this is the inception of King David. It is just only telling us that this man is not, he doesn't possess God's heart, but rather a man after God's own heart is seeking. Because you see the contrast between King Saul not following these 3 directives from Samuel, which was the mediator between the spirit of what they have learned or what they have established up to that point. So a man after God's own heart, the context of this, the way we read man after God, is not that this man will have or possess God's heart. It simply means that this man will follow the directive in this context, the directive of Samuel. Now, if you look clearly, I read the preceding verse before the verse. Anyways, I read verse 14 to show you, even in that verse, it is clearly understood the contrast between Saul and the next king that would arise. So when we look at verse 13, it says, and Samuel said to Saul, thou hast done foolishly. So now, by just the context of this, God is choosing a man that won't do foolishly. Thou hast not kept the commandment of the Lord thy God, which he commanded thee. For now would he have established your kingdom. So if you look at the context, it's a kingdom is established by what the people believe, what they assume, what they experience, and what as they move. So some of the simple question we could ask: why would God then command David, in this case, because we read the passage, we already know, why would God command somebody who already possesses his heart? If the person already have God's heart, as they assume and as many preached, if David already have God's heart, why would God then command him through Samuel? And then we see as David lived out his life, which as David lived out his life and his experience, we see the atrocity that David did. We see also the atrocity that Solomon did. How is it that preachers and teachers don't preach what is actually in the context of the book? It's strange. But I guess in the New Testament it says false Christ and false prophets shall arise, which they had done in the past, which they will do presently, and I assume plainly that they will do in the future. And what false prophet does, even if they didn't learn it, they were taught it, so they preaching lies. So David didn't have or possess God's heart. That's idolatry. David seek God's wisdom, seek God's knowledge, seek God's understanding. And basically, when you seek God's, as we say, the righteousness of God, then you could teach the population how to follow. And even in Solomon's writing, it says, righteousness exalts a nation, but sins in our approach to any people. You realize that's the context of a man after God's own heart. Not that he possessed God's heart, but rather through his own experience, through his life, his ruling, whatever his experience, is seeking or running after, as a very famous song, gospel song, he's running after God's wisdom through his own experience, through his advisors, through laws, through codes, through statutes. That's basically what it is. Of a man after God's own heart in the context of Samuel, which they taught me, which English language teachers taught me about context, as a very famous prophet who died not recently, maybe a year ago. He said, if you take a text out of context, it becomes a pretext. Even that very prophet that said that did the very same thing, and it always baffled me. It just always made me feel I don't know what to say, alone. Yeah, because they're teaching context, things taken out of context, and preach with a pretext, and they consistently do the same thing. So like this, the prevailing thought that David had or possessed God's heart is not true. It simply means, in the context of 2 Samuel, that God is going to choose a man, rather, Samuel is going to choose a man by the leading of the Spirit that would yield or worship the Spirit of truth. Not an image, not a church, not something that we can see, not the sun, not the moon, not the stars, not the trees, not the fox, not even man, but rather worship the Spirit. The prophet that came later in the New Testament said it. They say he said it like this: God is a spirit, and they that worship God worship him in spirit and in truth. So therefore, there is no physical attributes, no physicality. There's nothing that we can worship. We can't worship even men. Even the very prophet that you said the preachers teach that we should worship Jesus said that you must worship God, which is in spirit. So the Spirit of truth always seeks a man to establish what is good and beneficial for his present generation, for his progeny, for his children, and to establish those in laws, codes, and behavior. I think it's behavior, but more necessarily is following the Spirit of truth accordingly. And because we are living in such a We're living, especially people living in major city, you're gonna have a rough time walking right. So David, in conclusion, David didn't possess God's heart. Never did. David, it simply meant that David will seek after the wisdom of his creator, all man creator. And then when he seek after his creator, he will establish those things through laws, code, statutes, and all these things. And so this will really in truth exalt the nation, that particular nation. Now you will see that people is preaching that that's not what exalts a nation. What really exalts a nation, like Egypt in the Old Testament, is through guns, bombs, and forces and stuff like that. When the Old Testament and the New Testament preach a total different concept. It's through the Spirit, how you order your life, how you carry yourself, how you help people, how you assist. And David did not possess God's heart, which is established by the writing that were given to us. It simply meant David will seek after the wisdom, the understanding, the knowledge, the righteousness, after the Spirit of truth. He will take another step in the history of mankind to the full grasp and knowledge of God. Peace and take care.